Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's another episode, another show, another all that of Unapologetically Strong. Welcome back, everyone, on this nice and hot and muggy day. So today is our first Brother to Brother. So let me refresh a couple of you guys' memory. So Brother to Brother is just like Wellness Wednesdays, is going to be a once a month, to where we got Dorian that comes in, we got Ivra come in, and then we got me. And so we're going to speak and talk about all things to the brotherhood. So this week we got 2/3, right? 2/3?
2/3.
I got my man Ivra. You going to talk into the mic, bro?
I'm talking.
All right,
I'm
man.
talking.
All right.
I got to get closer to the mic.
Do you got a radio name? I put Ivra B.
See, this is the thing.
What's up?
Is I could go just Ivra. And I won't compare myself to Prince, but that's where I got the idea.
Is that right?
Just Ivra. 'Cause there's a very small handful of Ivra.
Well, we got. So I was just about to say, because you're junior, which means that, right? I was about to say you got to give Pops a shout out. So if some of you guys may remember, Ivra was on our very first show of Unapologetically Strong, and so he has come back. I've asked him to be a part of the Brother to Brother crew, and just like before, this brother always got something powerful to say. And for those that don't know, this brother started out on the radio. So
started out on TV.
On TV, my fault. Hey,
so
what about wait?
Fair, I did do a radio stint in college.
Okay.
And Dr. Armin Langholtz did not appreciate my choices for music.
Oh, okay.
Back at Capital University down in Bexley. So
shout out to Capital.
We just moved on to the television because it was easier.
It was just easier.
More fun.
And also, there may or may not be a commercial out there, adopted commercial out there with Ivra in it.
Okay.
Is that right?
I think there is.
I swear.
I think there is. I forgot about that. Yeah.
But y'all don't know, Ivra is a proud adopter of some little people. Two of them?
Two little people. They're not so little anymore, but
no, they big now.
When they got there, they were tiny.
All right.
One newborn, and my son was 2.5. Yeah.
Well, welcome to the Brother to Brother. So what was your motivation in wanting to be a part of this conversation?
I think
other than my sterling personality.
Well, there is a wide chasm of the need for our voices to us is great. And I don't think that we give ourselves enough credit for being able to share our stories, and the taboo of mental health or having a therapist or whatever the case. We just need to talk more.
Yeah.
As a people, as a brotherhood. And we all have problems. We all have to figure out how to grow, but we just need to talk more.
Yeah. So this is a Wellness Wednesdays. So where we bring in Steph come in, and I think her job is to ensure that I stay on task. Now, so in other words, I got two other brothers that's going to be here, and I'm not sure whose job is going to evolve into being on task, but we're going to see. So I'm really excited about this. So our first topic definitely goes strong, in my opinion, because I've had a couple different individuals in my life who have struggled with growing past their crew. Because I know that I had an issue with that, and I'm not sure how many people have an issue with that, growing past their crew, trying to find out where to build a community, and also just connecting that concept of, because I'm bald head. And
me too.
Right. The other 1/3 that is not here, he has hair, but I don't think he goes to the barbershop. Okay. Right.
Okay.
Right. Cause he growing dreads. Right.
Okay.
So getting and allowing yourself to be open to connecting in different locations. Right. So, right now, everybody talking about, these podcasts is called the barbershop and all this other stuff. Right. I have a favorite radio station that I listen to, and they do the barbershop, and I'll be like, I didn't. That wasn't me. Now,
go.
So the other crazy part is, so my step grandmother, she had a beauty shop.
Okay.
And I would have to go and work, me and my cousins. And so I grew up hating anything that had chairs in it and people would come. So I didn't like barbershops and I didn't like beauty shops. So, but I take my son to barbershops. Shout out to the barbershop.
Well, and you know what, man, growing up for me, going to the barbershop meant sitting in the waiting room for 4 hours while everybody, no. I went to the barbershop this morning in my house with my Andis edger. And that was it.
Right, and that was it. So before we jump into that, last week I had a solo show, my first solo show.
Okay.
And that was just me in here by I wasn't in here, I was in the other one, but in here by myself, talking about black male suicide, right? That was the thing. And darn near bawling on the on the air.
It's rough. That's rough. That's a topic, again, that doesn't get enough. We don't talk about enough.
Yeah.
And when you say that, it that one hits close to my soul because my cousin passed away by suicide in 2017. And the ramifications of that are still present.
Right.
Not only for his mom, his sisters, his daughters.
All that.
Me. I mean, least of all, but it's one of those things that you will never have an answer to.
Right.
And you have to be able to come to terms with the fact that I'm going to never know the reality of how we got there.
Right.
And then I do the thing where, man, I know he wouldn't have done that if.
Right.
What could I?
We call that survivor's remorse.
My goodness.
No, for real. I mean, that's, and last week, there were two things that I didn't touch on that I forgot to touch on. And I think because it was such an emotional show.
Right.
I mean, it was such an emotional show for me. So once again, if you got, just so that we're talking about suicide just in this, short moment, suicide prevention hotline is 988. And if at any time you would like to talk to me, either you can call 216-282-3733 and select option number 1, and we'll get you connected with a therapist. Or you can text me at 216-243-9636. And if you want to be involved in any of our minority men's mental health programming that we have coming up, you can email me or email us at minoritymen@mewcohio.com. But to put a bow on this, what I forgot to actually bring up was this concept of forms of suicide that I see with us black men. So first and foremost, we have the active, right? That means that is literally, such as my friend, he hung himself. That's literally like a lethal method, right? So we're talking about guns. We're talking about, hanging, somewhere, along that lines or, stuff like that. But there are passive versions of committing suicide. And those are the ones that most people don't actually see. And what brought it up, to be perfectly honest, I had just got done reading The Tao of Wu-Tang, which is written by RZA. It's his second book. Did you know RZA wrote a book?
I didn't know he wrote a book.
Okay. Right. He wrote 2 books.
Okay.
And so in the Tao, so I'm not sure if you know RZA. RZA, from the Wu-Tang Clan, he was more of the, I'm going to be perfectly candid with you. He was, even when I seen him, his energy was more worldly than some of the other ones, right? Okay. And so in the book, he does an excellent job of breaking down. So he's also a 5%er, which is a derivative of the Islamic faith. But if you notice, he says the Tao. So Taoism is an Eastern religion, right? And so what he did in this book, he did an excellent job of just allowing him to be a whole person, right? And I didn't even know that he created, when he was going through his moments that I'll talk about in a minute, he created a whole nother persona called Bobby something, to where he made a whole nother, CDs as Bobby, not as RZA.
Right.
So did you know that?
No.
Yeah. No.
I mean, I would like to think that I know music, but clearly
it's crazy because it was him being at the most debased time, debased moments of his life. And he says he needed to do that, right? He had, the Wu-Tang Clan was almost about to, they was going their separate ways and this and that and that. So, he does a great job. Now, what he also did is he talked about ODB. right? He talked about ODB and the day that he died. So, Old Dirty Bastard, right? So when RZA started the action, this is a radio show, and we play music.
Okay.
When RZA started the Wu-Tang Clan, he started he was a 5%er, and he was always drawn to that, right? And they have the 12 principles and whatever. I'm not going to get into it, and because I'm not going to do it a good justice. And so what he did was, when he decided to create a group, he had his cousin, who was Jizza, and then his other cousin, who was ODB, or Old Dirty Bastard.
Yeah.
And so they changed the name, right? He went from his actual name that I can't remember to actually RZA, and then Jizza, changed his name, and then ODB changed his name. But the point of what I'm saying is this passive concept of suicide. And what he does in his book, The Tao of Wu-Tang, he talks about how, when he knew that Old Dirty Bastard was going to be gone, is when he had for the first time shot up in front of his son.
Wow.
And he made his son watch him, right? And RZA wanted to, and this was at the time, he wanted to be, they had like this Wu-Tang basement, right? In Staten Island, I think,
right.
whatever have you. And that was at the time ODB was just going through it, right? He was going through it. And what he was talking about, he knew that he was going to be dead that next day, is because before he looked at him, right? Before RZA left, because he was like, I can't stay here and watch this. He looked at him and said, I don't understand anymore. And so if you ever follow the 5%ers, it's knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, right? And so the concept of understanding is truly understanding your worth and who you are. And then you go into wisdom, and then you go into the other principles, right?
So it's a base.
It's a base, right? It's the literal level. First three.
Right.
And when he said when he looked at him and he said, I no longer understand. Wow. And that's when he knew that Old Dirty Bastard was going to be dead. And the next day he died. He died from that shoot up. And what he actually said is something that I said last week, is when it comes to actual dignity of black men, when black men lose their dignity, right, which is not trapped, but is housed in the soul, the spirit, when that is gone, then they're more likely. So in my opinion, that was a passive way of committing suicide. Another one is being stuck in a situation, in my opinion, to where you choose, like, you have no more, it's just straight apathy. You have no more will to move out of that situation, and you're literally just waiting to die.
Right. Yeah. And so I think you kind of see that last one for our older generation when a spouse passes away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had a dear friend who his wife passed away, and it was great on one hand to see them together.
Yeah,
because I felt like I was watching a real in-person live fairy tale.
Yeah,
because you don't find people that truly fall in love and stay together. I think almost 50 years, and then his wife passed away a couple of years later. 3 years. Actually, it was a few years. Maybe I think it was like 4, maybe 5 years. But one of the things that I understood as he spoke, he called her his esteemed queen. Yeah, and he never recovered. And that was he was just waiting for death to come. He never recovered.
There's a couple other ones, right? So let me get through it, because we got to pay bills around here. Right. So another one is just flat out taking drugs and just waiting, right? Just knowing that you are at your wit's end and you lack the ability to do the active portion. And so you're just taking drugs. You're just living reckless. And in all honesty, when RZA was talking, that's what he was talking about when he created that other, and it's not really created because his first name is not RZA, obviously. I think it's Robert, hence is the reason why he picked Bobby. But at any case, he was waiting to die, right? And he was young. Right. Yeah. And so, he was going through, he was, getting high. He was just living, right? He was living in Trump Towers, paying $10,000, he was picking up cats, and they was just a part of his crew. Right. And so that's one. And then to put a bow on it, another passive way, I'm going to be perfectly honest, is being a part of gangs and or setting yourself up in position to be harmed, or, at the hands of police, right? Yep. Or at the, stepping on stepping into traffic. One of the things that was quite interesting is I was in a class one time and they said, well, how do young people commit suicide? And we were like, oh, 13 years old, 14, right? We were like, well, what does it look like for under those ages? And we had never fathomed that someone that young not wanting to be here, they said what it looks like is them just walking in the traffic.
Just not paying attention, like not
even paying attention. This is an active, because the instructor at the time was working with young kids, and he was about 9 or 10, and was like, well, what happened? Why did you choose to do that? And he was like, I didn't want to do this anymore. And he walked in, he walked in the middle of traffic. So yeah.
The depth.
Yeah. All right. So I know that was loud, but we gotta break it up here. Ivra got that look on his face. So we're gonna break it up here, and then on the other side, we're gonna jump into it. This is Unapologetically Strong on WOVU 95.9 FM. WOVU 95.9 FM. Unapologetically Strong. All right, so let's lift it up a little bit.
Good,
because I got a little. So I'm not sure if you have been following the whole beef between the big three. So J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, and Drake. Right? You got to talk. What? But so it actually them three. So out of those three, I'm gonna be perfectly honest, I only like two. I only like Kendrick Lamar and Drake. I mean, Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole. Drake is a little popcorn. I mean, I think I may have light skin hate sometimes because he's the reason why he's the reason why light skinned people still getting beat up, man. Let me tell you. But at any because I had the DeBarge in my days, and now what?
Shout out to El DeBarge, because that man can still sing. He had a thing on PBS. It was awesome.
So I'm not sure if you've been following it. And so they called themselves the Big Three. And so they went back and forth, and they was going at it. And, each one had a diss, right? This and then this and that, blah, 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 whatever. My point in that is somewhere down the line, somebody said, you know what, I'm grown past you. And I'm not sure about you. I've had this struggle. And so recently I was at the gym, and one of my frat brothers, shout out Ben, was like, "Hey, I spoke to your sayings," and he, said which sayings it was. And the very first thing I thought about was, what did he say? Because I believe, in my opinion, that one, when I left away from University of Akron, I left for my own, ability or to actually grow, right? But I left a lot of people behind, and it can look like abandonment, right? And so the first thing that popped into my head was this concept of abandonment, right? And what to do with that. What's your thoughts on that?
So to me, it starts with mindfulness and understanding that that you're in a space, right? Mm-hmm. You're in a space, and my space is limited by X, Y, or Z. But if we don't take inventory of who we are, where we are, and what we want to do, then we'll never know that we need to grow beyond our crew. Yeah. So you have to know where you want to be. You have to understand where you are. Yeah. Not to judge, not to compare, not good, bad, or ugly, just objectively. And that's a thing too that we don't have much of in our society, is objectivity. Yeah. Especially at the things that we find to be emotionally
unpalatable.
Right. So we can't look at things. We can't look at ourselves objectively. We can't look at our careers objectively. I think that's like the very first step, is being able to look at my situation, assess it objectively, and move based on what I see.
Well, this is the interesting part. I didn't know until I started seeing my therapist. Shout out to Tiffany.
Yes, shout out to
Dr. Tiffany.
Dr. T.
Right, Dr. T. Tiff. That I had abandonment issues. So This is the crazy part. Not the crazy part, but this is the part. So through therapy, I found that my parents never chose me. Right. Okay. So I've never had anyone anyone that's supposed to choose me ever been like, all right, so that's that dude. I'm gonna choose him. So it showed in my business model for my practice. So that was one. It showed how I relate to, other people. The one place it didn't actually show necessarily is in my marriage, but it definitely showed how I fathered. So these feelings of abandonment has been something that has been there with me, and it's that dirty little secret that hides in that gray area of your life. And so when he said it, in my opinion, I thought about all the people that I abandoned, including this person.
Okay. Yeah. That's another one but you have to, again, but so you're one of the people that I know that is okay. Like you will just give me like the real, right? And that's just something I don't see it enough. Like that we're just getting the real fact.
Uncut.
Yeah. And I think when we are able to take that information and move accordingly, then we grow. And we can, a lot of times we're afraid.
I think the other thing is so once I felt abandoned, right? Because you can still have the feeling without having the words to it. So I felt this my entire life, right? And so my pain was being left behind. So what I would do is leave other people behind first before they can hurt me. So in therapy, that's called, what is that? Preconceived, whatever. I can't.
Preempted strike.
Yeah, I don't have that. My therapist has on, but that's what I would do. Right. I would first emotionally first and then physically abandon people so that they would not leave me behind. So when we're looking at growing past our crew or Black men, growing past their crew, when I was, talking with my client, he was just like, I can't trust these cats because every time I'm around them, there's a lot of violence. There's a lot of, and I'm no longer like that. And, when I looked into this brother's face, he was really like, he was searching and I had to reassure him bro, there's other people out there just like you.
Right.
Right.
For me, I've had a lot of my closest friends are friends that I've had since my 20s. College and the years right after college for me were the most impactful in that the friendship groups that I had then, those are my circle. Mm-hmm. And so I move in a way that I've got that inner circle and then I've got, different layers, but that tight group is who I keep. And those are the ones that I have kept since 1994 or whatever, 1992. And those are the ones that I will go back to and call. And they're, and I think it's okay to be able to move beyond friendships, understanding that people are in your lives for a reason,
season of life
or a lifetime.
What I also told him, and something that he didn't actually understand, and I'm gonna be perfectly candid, I didn't understand this either, is that you're supposed to have pockets of friends.
Okay.
Right. You're not supposed to have one friend group to feed you. You're supposed to have other people.
Right.
And what's crazy is that, depending on how you actually grow up. Right. So if you grew up obviously in our day, if you went to a neighborhood school, right, your friends in the neighborhood was the same people that you went to school with. And you didn't get new friends unless sometimes if you went to a different park or a different, activity. And so in all honesty, I was not taught or it was not demonstrated to have different pockets, right? The only other pocket was a family pocket and a friend pocket, but yet and still you called them your play cousins anyway.
Right. But so then for me, it was different. So I went to Catholic school and it wasn't in the neighborhood. It was like, 2 neighborhoods over basically. Yeah. And so we had the Black folks at the Catholic school, and I'm talking high school. We had the Black group. Yeah. And so I learned at a very early age how to code switch.
Yeah.
And I didn't, in 1988, there was no name.
No.
I just knew that
you was talking white.
I just knew that. or the funniest thing, one of my best friend's mom, I called him like, yo, can I speak to Jose? And I could hear her say, who is that? Who is that? She's like whispering, who is that?
He's that like, on the phone?
That's it. He said, who's Ivra? He sounds like a white boy. And I was like, oh, okay. So, but it's cool.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jose. We're going to give shout outs today.
Shout out all day. That's what we do. But no, I get it because I have a friend, that have been with me since high school. And I know for a fact that he never abandoned me, but I abandoned him multiple times.
And you've gone back.
It's not about going back. It's the brother actually cared about me and I didn't recognize that, right? So I was used to people leaving me.
So how can you abandon someone many times?
Good question.
I don't know. You kind of lost me on that one. I'm like,
yeah. I think it's more about emotionally cutting somebody off who's perpetually in your life.
Okay.
To where you open the door back up and then something happened within me, right? Mm-hmm. And then you close it back off. Right. Because this can happen, in a marriage. This can happen in a parentship. This can happen in any type of, ship to where you open yourself up and then something happens, right? Mm-hmm. Or you become your personal insecurities start, sparking and then you close back up.
Right.
And then somebody be like, he's the only cat that called me and be like, bruh, what's up with you? Right? He's the only dude who has ever done that, who has ever been like, yo, E, you and I ain't talked in a while. What's up? When I say the only cat. And this is not shade on you because you my brother too. But you will text, some cats, cats now will text now.
Right.
But this brother called and was like, yo, we ain't hung out in a while. Right. I ain't talked to you. Right. What's up? And so he has been with me since high school. Yeah. Shout out to Walt Goggins.
Right on. I move a little different from that because, so for me, I have a loyalty thing. So I don't know that other than the fact that if I've told you need to be gone.
You need to back off.
You need to be gone. Deuces. But outside of that, I am the dude that will be like, you know what? I haven't talked to our main since 2020. So I'll just be like, hey,
yeah,
Carlos. So my West Coast friends, since I lived out there for about 12 years. So those dudes out there, I'll get them on the phone.
Yeah.
So for me, there's never a point in which, unless there was an event,
a straight up like, yo,
event,
we need to separate,
right? Unless there was one of those occurrences, then I'm always like, oh man, you know what? Let me call so and so.
Yeah.
So
I think, but it's also unfair. So last week I talked about a crew that I had, that was bigger. Once, my man committed suicide, we began to go down. So, I do have crew, right? I got Mike left, he's still, I got Justice, I got Pat. So I have a crew, right? I got Tierney. Shout out to all these. Plus I got other ones, right? But I have to say this individual, and those friends have been with me roughly 25 years. This cat has been with me since 7th grade.
Yeah. I love that.
7th grade. And he's the only one, right? But he will like periodically, like recently, like, bro, where you been? Like, what's up? And I'm not sure. I don't know if I need that. I believe I need that. Let me go ahead and say that.
You do.
I need that. But I think we all need that.
Sure. Yes. And so I like the thought, and you put this in a perspective that I hadn't thought of before, is having pockets of friends.
Right.
For me, I kind of made myself laugh. So for me, it's like, I got my black friends, I got my white friends. But I do, in a sense, from having been the only black person in the room.
So often.
Many cases.
So often.
But then you learn and you find people within those environments that, you know what, I can rock with this cat.
Okay.
And so then that, you bring him in. And I have the tendency, and my wife will tell you that this is, she hates this, but man, I will be dragging people off the street to the house. Come on through. And she absolutely
what is that? Well, hold on. So we got to do a commercial.
Okay.
But so on the other side, I want to know where that comes from.
I can tell you where.
All right, where it comes from. So let's take a quick break. This is Unapologetically Strong on WOVU 95.9 FM.
Okay.
Welcome back. Unapologetically Strong, 95.9 FM.
Apparently I never left.
Yeah, you never left.
Okay.
Yay. So that was a Mother's Day shout out.
Okay.
So we're going to get that Father's Day shout out too one day.
Yes.
Anyway, you ever watch Blackish? What is the name of that?
Yeah,
what was that? Daddy's Day? Never mind. All right. So the question was before we transition was where does pulling cats off the street come in?
So there's an element of culture. And I think we do this in our community to a point. But I think for me, I saw my parents have folks that lived in the house. My Uncle Milton, again,
generation,
the ghetto uncle, who was not related to anybody.
Oh, he wasn't. He wasn't biological. Oh,
no,
okay.
not a biological. Yeah, so
he was a community uncle.
He lived. He lived in the upstairs. But we would see that, right? My dad told me about stories where folks would, my grandparents, they would live in my grandparents' house or whatnot, and then when I lived in San Diego, we had Charlie and one of my friends, and so Charlie was the community. He needed the community. Like we as a community raised Charlie. Mm-hmm. And so my man Jose, he lived with Jose for a while in Peoria, Illinois. And then he went out to San Diego and he was going to be one of the border patrol. So he lived with me.
Yeah.
And when I lived, so for me, it's something that I've seen growing up, mm-hmm. and it feels right. That it feels like you need to do that on times, because you don't meet great people all the time. And for me, it's important to show that appreciation. Mm-hmm. And then I've learned that sharing a meal, that's a part of community. That's a part of how you get to know people. That's a part of bonding with people. And so that's one of the things in church they talked about is sharing a meal. And it's a ministry mm-hmm. of sharing meals, and that's biblical. And it's, mm-hmm. It goes back thousands of years. And it's a really good way of bonding and growing your community.
So I'm gonna throw this out there. I was not raised by wolves, just so.
Okay.
But
that's good to know.
Well, I was not raised by wolves, but I cannot remember a time that my mom ever had people over at the house to eat. Okay. And so it feels weird for, because, Joy would be like, we got to invite this person. And I'm fine with it, right? But it feels weird, right? Because it's not something that we did growing up, and I don't like it, right? I don't like that was not a part of, because that means my kids are not good. It's not going to be a part of my kids, lexicon, unless I do something about it. But we never used the dinner table at my grandmother's house or my house. I don't even know. I can't even remember if we had a dinner table. No, we didn't have a dinner table that was being able to use. So I couldn't use the living room, and
because it had
furniture. It didn't have that, but it had like white, for some reason, it had white carpet and very white light. Anyway. So I didn't have that, so I can go down that rabbit hole. But we got to transition. I can go down that rabbit hole, and I appreciate that, because even before you were like, "Hey, we got to get you over. We got you," and I'm fine with that. But I appreciate that. That is something that you allow yourself to have and also to show.
Man, and there's nothing better than like, and I hate speaking in cliches, but. That is a great feeling. I'll phrase it that way. That is an excellent feeling. And I remember, whether it be family or friends, but there was a time a few years ago where we had my cousin Janine and her husband and her boys and my mom and that was one of and somebody took a picture, somebody slid off to the side, took a picture, and it was amazing just to see like the energy and the love in that room. And so then when you have these opportunities, I think we have to recognize and seize the moment in these opportunities where you get a chance to make a meal or create a meal together and just eat.
Meal is a community.
Yes.
And so oddly enough, that transitions into, last year I went through my pilgrimage of self-manhood or manhood or maleness or whatever, is, I challenged myself to go out, every Wednesday with a black male, right? And have lunch. And what I was attempting to do is that same thing. And oddly enough, we had it over lunch. It wasn't while bowling. It wasn't and it was over lunch. And what I was attempting to do was build a community. And so and I did. I had the great opportunity, and with you, because I met you last year at an event I didn't want to go to.
You know, that was like 2 years ago, right? Maybe 3.
Was it 2 years?
Yeah.
It wasn't 2 years ago.
It was more than 3. More than 2.
It was not.
Almost 3.
Okay. Well, let me.
I thought, you know what, and the only reason why I'm correcting you because
Why?
I actually thought about it,
Uh-huh.
and then I was like, hold up, but then we did, and then so I had that agency,
Yeah.
because we got your kids set up,
Yeah.
and I didn't.
How long ago was that?
3 years ago.
So in creating community, when we trying to build this community with Black men, right? Or, you know, and we take everybody.
Yes.
But, you know, because we are Black men, you know, we look towards Black men first. I'm just going to be honest with you. So in building the community, what I needed to do was to be proactive about connecting with fellow Black men.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is all that is needed, but I just really want to know what's your stance on all this in building community and what's needed and how to go about doing it.
That's kind of $1 million question because I'm trying to build a business community for networking, and it's difficult. I think the challenges are the memory of COVID, and I think.
But we can't blame that though.
Well, so I think a lot of what happened during COVID was that we got even more entrenched in our tribe, and our tribe became smaller and smaller and smaller, and so. Based on, you know, how many months? Some people were in their house for 6 months. Some people
it
were
was
in their
longer
house
than
for
that.
12 months.
Right.
Or 18. And
18, 24.
Right. And so we're trying to get back out of that corridor, or excuse me, that box that we put ourselves in.
It was a corridor.
I mean, even for me, like one of the things that I recognize so I have these anxieties and now these phobias from having been isolated. Like I don't like elevators no more.
Yeah.
I don't like to go through the car wash no more. And I'm like, this is so silly. Like that's one of the things that I've been working. And the elevator thing, I think I'm on the other side of that. Mm-hmm. And I'm so embarrassed. I took my daughter to Toronto.
Right.
And we paid money to go into the CN Tower.
I was just about to ask you that. Yeah.
Man, I had myself psyched up. I'm going to do this. The elevator opened and I was expecting for it to be glass and it was concrete. And I'm like, baby girl, I will see you when you get back.
You let her roll by herself.
She went on up there, had a good time, talked about she could see Niagara. But, you know, that was one of those things that I never even thought about.
Did you regret it?
I still regret it.
To this day?
To right now. I'm like, we need to go back to Toronto so that I can go up there with you and see what you saw.
So the community concept is, you think is hindered. We need to what? Because in other words, there was a different level of discomfort for individuals being in community. With adding COVID, it has gotten worse.
Yeah, it's hard. Again, it kind of goes back to being mindfulness and being aware of the fact that those things need to happen, and then how do you make it happen? I think it can be as simple as speaking to folks on the street, saying hello, or even finding. I think right now, finding a place where other folks are going to be that you might have something in common with. Like this morning, the kid's bus driver was like, "Oh, it's raining, no softball today." Mm-hmm. Okay, so think about that for us. You know, so some of us like to play basketball, some of us like to play baseball. I'm not playing football again. I'm not doing that.
Tell your wife.
But I can always, you know, in our community we have like a microbrew, and I think it's fascinating how these dudes who own this microbrew, how they brew the beers and how they, you know, the chemistry behind it. And so finding those things that you like, that you know, that has a community of people, and the internet is undefeated.
But okay, so what is needed? So in order to build these communities, because we still, I get what it looks like, right? I get what it looks like. You know, the microbrewery, right? It looks like collectivism. It looks like intentional, right? Intentionally coming out of your comfort zone, right? You know, plus with what went on. But I still think we need something, because I far too often, when male to male energy comes together, certain individuals can't give up the competition aspect. Mm-hmm. They can't let go and let just be you.
Right.
Because there's so much. And I don't even, to be perfectly honest, I don't think it's just competition. A lot of people are raised by women.
Right.
And other men in their life have been a sense of hardship or competition, because that's where it came from for me. And I wasn't the only one, right? I was just someone who was okay being vocal about it, that I had issues with other black males.
Okay.
And why did I have that? I had that because I was, I had to fight black males in my front yard for years, right? And then my dad was, right? So I can itemize. And then when I was speaking at a group of men, and it's this 2-3 cats came up to me and was like, yeah, I didn't know what to call that, but I had that same thing. But theirs was their mom's or their parents, their mom's boyfriend wasn't, right? Or the stepdad wasn't. Yep. You see what I mean?
Yep.
So I get what you're saying, but what do we need to do?
That's a good, I'm going to go back to so my theme of the day is mindfulness.
Did you just go to therapy today?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
That was last Thursday.
That was last. Okay, my fault.
But the lessons are not too far from.
They're transitional.
But until we recognize that there is a need, mm-hmm. then we ain't going to solve that need. Okay. Even with our kids, having been through, through therapy with our children, my wife is so much better at it than me, and she will vocalize, in this moment, our child needs what? Mm. But if you're not aware of the fact that there's a need, then you don't know that you need to rise to the occasion to address the need.
So is it a need?
There is a need
of community. Because I know, like I said, my caseload is primarily men, right. Definitely black men. And I hear it in the need, and I'm trying to create groups, right?
Yeah.
Groups. And there's other stuff, but we're going to jump out, take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk about just different places for us to meet, right?
Yes.
I
have some ideas on that.
You got some ideas? Yes. All right. So we're going to take a quick break. This is Unapologetically Strong on WOVU 95.9 FM. Unapologetically Strong. All right. So we come to that part of this show to where we got to get to solutions. So
I'm solution oriented.
We got to be solution oriented. So great job though, as your first brother to brother. Great job. I don't have what?
It's what I do.
That's what you do. All right. So we got to come up with different meeting places. So a lot of times we talk about the barbershop, we talk about this, we also bring up church, right? Men's church and this and that. And I think that we miss opportunities when we're attempting to find a place after you have transitioned from your crew, right? To where you're not feeling all alone, and feeling as if the emotions that you're having are all your own. Then we go to building a community, but we gotta have a place, right? So every time that I went and met someone, I went to eat.
Yeah.
So you said you had some ideas. I'm gonna turn it over to you. So go ahead.
So the two things that stand out for me that are near and dear to me is Black owned business.
Okay.
And finding Black owned businesses to patronize. So whether it be a restaurant, B&W, whatever. My man Terry over in Maple, Fresh Life 216 is a health food restaurant. Mm-hmm. But finding Black owned businesses to support, it's a double win.
Yeah.
You get to find a place to hang out. You get to find a place to support. They get to find another customer. So that's huge for me. That's one of the things that And you have to be purposeful in those.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
You got to find them.
But the other part is if you are they do this at McDonald's, right? So they have people that come in and they sit in the morning and just drink McDonald's coffee.
Right.
As a Black business, you got to be open,
right?
To allowing individuals to be in community, in this location. Yeah. All right, so that's one. Patronizing Black businesses. What you got? What's next?
And my second one is IYC, Inner City Yacht Club downtown on Marginal. And this, I use this in more of a metaphorical type thing. Obviously, that's a good location because Black folks, we aren't known as boaters, right?
Yeah.
We're not known for loving
most
water.
Black folks can't swim.
And a lot of us cannot swim.
Unfortunately.
However, finding something that you may have thought about doing in your life, finding something that I've always wanted to do X, Y, or Z. Do it. Go do that thing at least once.
Yeah.
And you might find other people there that welcome you with welcome arms. And I'll talk about IYC because a lot of people don't realize that you can be an associate member and don't have to have a boat.
Okay.
Right. And so for me, when I went down there this past fall, and we brought our boat over from Lorraine, and Pop and I were in the water for 4 hours, and one of the motors didn't really work all that well. And the funniest thing was when I got to the club, when I docked the boat, it just so happened to be one of those days where there was 4 or 5 people there. Mom and wife came to pick us up,
right.
And it ended up being an hour's worth of just fellowship off the cuff. And I have never felt, as an adult, I've never felt more at home.
Because we have what's called legacy, organizations, which are typically Divine Nine, Links,
yes,
right, Jack and Jill. We also have 100 Black Men. But that, what you're discussing is something that is actually unique in Northeast Ohio because it's a Black-owned yacht club in Northeast Ohio. All right. So the first one was Black-owned businesses. The second one was finding something that you enjoy and finding your people there.
Finding your folks.
All right. What else you got?
That's it for me, really, man. Those are that's it. But I'll go back to the first.
Yeah.
But there are so many Black-owned businesses.
Yeah.
From everything, from charcuterie board makers to restaurants.
What is that word you just said?
Man,
charcuterie. Charcuterie. That's a bunch of meats and
meats and cheeses
on the plate. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Over in Warrensville, we got the Black Eye Doctor, and that's another thing too, man. Healthcare, we can do a whole hour on healthcare in our community, but we have veterinarians and that's animal healthcare, but we have dentists and eye
Black
doctors.
folks take their pets to healthcare.
And the crazy thing too is, and I don't, most of us don't realize this, the vast majority of Black vets went to Tuskegee.
Yeah. A lot of them.
So most of them, like 75%.
Right. I was going to say.
But they went to Tuskegee. I think
shout out to HBCUs.
Oh, man.
Go ahead.
TU, I was down there back in 89. So
go ahead, man.
But being purposeful and finding Black business. Think about this for a minute. How good does it feel when you talk about being chosen, being sought out and chosen? How awesome it is. How awesome it is. And this has happened to me a time or two where somebody was like, I was looking for a Black, whatever you are.
Black counselor, Black
insurance agent, right?
Right.
And I was, man, when it happened to me the first time, I think it's happened to me twice in my career. The gentleman was like, I was wanting to find a Black insurance agent. And I was like, bet, I got you. And we're going to take care of you.
All right. So number 1 is Black-owned businesses. Number 2 is finding. Number 3, I'm just going to be perfectly candid. Go back to the source.
Okay.
Go back to church.
Okay.
And
or the mosque.
Or mosque, right, or temple or whatever. Go back to the source, because I truly believe that we did a great job over, previous years and decades of collectivism. Now, the only thing that I would change is take out the performative aspect of being a part of the church, but back to the church.
That's a whole.
No, for real.
That's a whole. No, the performative
because
aspect is,
I grew up in a church family.
Me too.
The Reeses, right? So Willie Reese, was the pastor, and my wife called me a pastor in hiding. But anyway,
okay,
right.
Nope.
But no, but what I disliked most about the church was is the performative aspect.
Right.
But I think that we need to return to the source.
Well. And I think in 2024, the church has, smarter churches, smarter congregations,
Mm-hmm.
smarter leadership in the church understand today that you ain't gonna make nobody come in with the hat.
Right.
You know what I mean? So Diana's going to come in with the hat, but Diana's also 71 years old.
Yeah.
Right. So this 22-year-old, 23-year-old, 30-year-old ain't wearing Di's hats, man.
Right.
And so there has to be a focus. The focus has to be on what we're doing while we're there.
Right.
In terms of the things that we can accomplish, the spirituality, the lessons, the understanding of scriptures,
Mm-hmm.
versus it don't matter that you wearing shorts because it's 90 degrees in Cleveland and it's hot.
So the first one is Black-owned businesses.
Yes.
Right. So what we're let me reset it. So what we're attempting to do is create a meeting place for, that brothers can go other than the barbershop or other than the basketball court. Right. So the first one is meet up at a Black-owned business.
Yes.
Right. So second one is be a part of an organization.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe not some of the legacy organizations, but some of these non-traditional.
Well, and you can still pledge grass chapter. I'm actually thinking about that myself.
Yeah. Oh.
But that's a different story.
Okay, that's a different story. All right. And then the third one, what I said was go back to source. I would also say, along with that, is just being okay. When you are out and about, right? Whether you're at a gym, whether you're at a mall, or you're in a location where there is more, right, to where there are other yous.
Yeah.
Just be open to smiling and saying, "Hey, bro, how you doing?"
Yeah.
Right. So I think, I don't know if that goes as a part of this segment or the one before when we were talking about building community, but just, it's okay to smile. It's okay to say hi. It's okay. I mean, you can get a head nod and smile.
Right.
So
the head nod is minimum though.
Right. So if we gonna do this, we got to wrap. They're gonna kick us off. So, but if we gonna do this, we got to be intentional.
Yes.
And I think that's the main part. So, first one was Black patronized or meet at Black-owned businesses, legacy or any type of organization. Third one was return back to the source, go to church. And the fourth one was just saying at a location where there's multiple youths, just say hi.
Yep.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming out, bruh, on our first brother to brother, right? Hopefully next time we got Dorian that come up in here, and we got, hopefully he'll, shout out to Dorian. So we're doing shout outs. Shout out to Dorian. Okay. He had a IEP meeting with his son. So he had to, he had to do his work. So work. So don't forget, we got activities coming up. We got at the Mount Zion, if you're looking for a connection, we got at Eastview United Church of Christ. You can call 216-921-7673. At Mount Zion of Oakwood, you can call. There's always activities. So appreciate you guys listening, and, connect with me at Minority Men's at MEWCOHIO if you want to talk. So I appreciate your time. Peace.